From Concord, New Hampshire, the 6 Republican presidential candidates address a forum sponsored by a group called the Gun Owners of New Hampshire. This program was recorded on Tuesday night.
Each candidate making a 3-minute opening statement. The speaking order will be determined by the order in which the candidates responded favorably to our invitation. Thus, the first to speak will be the last who responded, and so forth until the first person who responded speaks last. So I think perhaps there will be a comment. The order speaking will be Governor DuPont, Pat Robertson, General Haig, Vice President Bush. Oh, they messed me up when they took out the door sign. In any event, General Haig, no, Vice President Bush, General Haig, Senator Dole, Representative Kemp. I'm sorry. We tried to work it from the outside in. In any event, this evening all candidates were invited from both, all the major candidates from both the Democratic and the Republican Party. You should take a good look at the people who are up here tonight, because the next President of the United States is up here, just as he was in 1980, the only candidate foolish enough to think that he could afford to ignore the ideas and the votes of honest law-abiding firearms owners was Senator Ted Kennedy. This year it seems to have spread. In the order in which they declined our invitations, the following are the candidates who think that they can afford to ignore your views and your votes this year. Congressman Richard Gephardt, Senator Paul Simon, Governor Bruce Babbitt, Governor Michael Dukakis, Jackson. Finally, the only candidate to initially say he would attend and then not show, Senator Alfred Gore. This time, before we get started, I'd ask everyone to stand and bow their heads for a brief prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all here safely tonight, and for the abundant blessings that you have showered upon us as Americans. Please help us all to have sufficient vision, wisdom, and strength, never to lose through neglect all that has been bestowed on us through the sacrifices of others and through your own generous good graces. Amen. I'm sorry, I should have had you remain standing. This time we do the Pledge of Allegiance and then we'll begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now I'd like you to welcome the first candidate to give his opening statement, Governor Pierre DuPont.
President, figure out how to be first to speak tonight. But I finally figured out how to do it, and here I am. I want you to know my name is Pete Jafon, and I have some beliefs that I believe that you share. I believe that the Second Amendment to the Constitution gives you the right to own a gun. I believe that you have the right under the First Amendment to the Constitution to say a prayer in school or anywhere else you want to pray. I believe you have a right to be safe in your own home. And I've had a chance in my career in government to back up those beliefs. I'm opposed to gun control. I oppose it as a member of Congress, voting against the Consumer Safety Product Commission having the right to regulate firearms. I oppose gun control as a governor. I believe we ought to be tough on criminals, and so yes, we do have to use a gun, go to jail law in our state, and I supported it. I signed a 20-year mandatory jail sentence, no probation, no parole for first-degree rape. I created a new guilty but mentally ill plea so that those who might be guilty of a crime but have some mental illness and who still know what they were doing would go to jail and get their psychiatric treatment in jail and not vice versa. I believe in the death penalty for premeditated murder. I signed it into law as governor of our state. I believe the death penalty on the federal level should be extended to treason, to espionage, to deaths resulting from the interstate sale of drugs. And finally, I believe one ought to be able to defend oneself in one's home. And in 1982, as governor, I supported and signed into law a bill that allowed a person to use deadly force, if necessary, to repel an invader from his or her own house. I believe in the right of Americans to the freedom we have, to defend themselves from those who would take it away from us, whether it be in your own living room by force of arms if necessary, if you think that is what's necessary to defend your family and your property. I believe those who would take life from us intentionally should suffer the death penalty, and I would never, as President of the United States, even consider changing the Second Amendment, because we do indeed, as that amendment says, have a right as people to keep and bear arms, and that right shall not be infringed. Thank you for the opportunity.
Next to speak will be Pat Robertson.
1775, the call came to New Hampshire from Massachusetts that help was needed against the British. Colonel John Stark recruited 1,300 New Hampshiremen. All they had with them was their hunting rifles. But they crossed the border and were the decisive factor, actually, in virtually annihilating an army of the strongest nation on the face of the earth. And they did it with their hunting weapons. That's the same John Stark that said, "Live free or die." It was the thought of that militia that prompted the framers of our Constitution to write these words: "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." I believe that sometime down the road, there might be an attempt by some foreign power to overwhelm us. There might be some insurrection where we find ourselves faced with a dictatorship. Those same people in New Hampshire, those good people who use their firearms for sporting purposes and like to go into the woods and enjoy hunting during the regular hunting season, they could still be the backbone of a well-regulated militia. And therefore, I have no intention as president of ever permitting any tampering with the Second Amendment. It's one of the fundamental rights that we all enjoy as Americans. Now, in my own life, I might say that I served in the United States Marine Corps. I shot expert with the Browning automatic rifle. I scored sharpshooter with the M1 rifle. Also, I believe marksman with the 30 caliber carbine. I'm familiar with both the 32 caliber pistol and the 45 caliber pistol. And in my home, my father, a former United States Senator, was voted by Field and Stream magazine one year the Sportsman of the Year. I grew up with firearms. I grew up with the concept of hunting as one of the most noble of pastimes. We learned how to respect arms, and we learned how to respect those who own them. I believe there are laws on the books against criminals, but there should not be laws on the books to treat honest, law-abiding gun owners as if they are criminals, and we cannot have that in any of our states or in the United States law code. And I will stand for the right of the people to keep and bear arms as fundamental and foundational to the freedoms we enjoy. Thank you very much.
Next will be Vice President Bush.
Arranging this forum, I want to thank Governor Sununu for being here. You're a great governor. Proud he is in my corner politically. Delighted that the man probably most foremost identified with the NRA nationally, at least in terms of publicity, great General Chuck Yeager is here, and at my side politically, I know you give him a warm welcome. Years ago, when I was a member of Congress, I went down, in as much as I've always believed in hunting and owned weapons, pistol, a couple of, 3 shotguns, a couple rifles. Went down to register in accord with the new Washington, D.C. law. I got there on the last week, complying with the law. And I said, how many people have registered? They said, well, about 12 or 16, somewhere between 12 and 15%. And I said, well, are any of the high-profile criminals turning their weapons in? Are you registering? He said, no, it's a bunch of suckers like you from Northwest Washington. And they taught me a lesson. And that's the trouble with gun control. You tangle the honest guy up in red tape, and the crooks just laugh. I think it's appropriate we have hunting licenses. There's mine. Had one for, I think, 30 years in a row. Happens to be for Texas, 87 and 88. And I enjoyed doing that at the end of this year. Comparing notes with Chuck on our favorite sport happens to be quail hunting. I supported 2 years ago the passage of the McClure-Volkmer bill, and I'm very pleased that there's a letter floating around here from my supporter, Jim McClure, thanking me for that help. It sought to reduce government harassment of gun owners and gun dealers while protecting local law enforcement interests. I'm very proud of Jim's support, and instead of going after firearms, our administration is going after criminals with aggressive prosecution and longer sentences. And because of these efforts by state and local enforcement, we've seen results. The most recent crime survey shows that the number of personal and household crimes dropped by 18% between 81 and 86. And at the federal level, we've increased prosecutions by half. And so there is some good news. Tomorrow the Senate will approve, I think, a new justice for the Supreme Court, and that is good because he's going to give us another voice on the court for balancing the rights of victims against the rights of the criminals. Thank you all very much.
Next to speak will be General Alexander Haig.
Fellow gun owners, my, what a treat it is to see every Republican candidates for the presidency here in this forum, and not a single Democrat. Be bad or worse than being first off tonight is being last, because we're all going to say the same thing. That's got to tell you something about self-serving candidates. I do want to suggest that I don't feel that it's necessary for me to furnish my credentials. America's gun owners. I spent most of my life around firearms. I own firearms today, large ones and small ones. I've used them for sport and for competition. I've used them with the conviction that every law-abiding American has the right to protect his household, his family, from illegal intrusion. And I've used them to protect this great nation of ours in 2 wars. Indeed, I carry the Purple Heart, another one of our candidates. And so I know perhaps better than most the value of firearms. And so many in America today believe that that knowledge, that familiarity breeds contempt and irresponsibility. You and I know, we gun owners, that familiarity with firearms enhances a sense of responsibility to the knowledge and the value of these instruments. And so, it goes without saying that Al Haig supports the Second Amendment, and I'll fight to the death for our right to maintain that here in America. Like the Soviet Union or Eastern Europe or other totalitarian states where gun laws are mandatory. Protect the lives of the rulers of those countries. In America today, I'm afraid, there's a great fetish both here at home as we face the challenges of law and order and as we face the challenges of enemies abroad, to translate these dangers into the instruments of violence rather than the causes of violence. Here at home, it is not weapons that are the source of crime, but criminals. And I applaud our Vice President's reference to this administration's emphasis on criminality rather than the abuse of the right of law-abiding citizens to bear arms. Here at home has been translated to abroad, where too many Americans believe that it is armaments and levels of armaments that threaten world peace, rather than the violation of international law by totalitarian regimes who are conducting warfare in the developing world today. And nuclear arms control is important, but it is not the essential aspect of world peace.
Next to speak will be Senator Robert Dole.
Let me join my colleagues in thanking you for coming. Let me state before I make a statement that I think one thing that happened tonight, didn't happen, that I regret, is all the networks turned down President Reagan's plea to go to the American people in support of Contra aid. And I happen to believe America believes in freedom. And I think they should have heard from President Reagan tonight, and I wanted you to know that that request has been turned down. But I hope you're supporting Contra aid, supporting freedom. I
brochures, not the negative ads, not the distortions, but look at the record. And like Al Haig, I felt the sting of a bullet once. And I must say, it took me a long time to understand what it was really all about, but I'm not here to talk about that. I can't hunt anymore. But I believe strongly in the Second Amendment. I was proud to serve with many in New England in the 10th Mountain Division in World War II. They had that letter of recommendation again. I got in. I don't know how to replace them because they're short. They'd take anything. And I came from the plains of Kansas. Didn't know anything about snow or skis, so they put me in the Mountain Division. Nothing changed in the Army. But I got 2 Purple Hearts for it and 2 Bronze Stars and a Combat Instruments badge for these actions. And so I know a little about guns, particularly about being on the wrong end of a gun. But I want this audience to take a look. Now, we passed McClure-Volkmer Act. It was introduced in 1979, and nobody ever brought it to the Senate until 1985, until I brought it to the Senate floor as Majority Leader. We fought off all the crippling amendments. We passed it by a narrow pigment margin of 79 to 15. We fought off Metzenbaum and Kennedy, and I had a telegram from Metzenbaum. I can't find it here, so I'll have to send it to you. He wishes you well. He's a disarming kind of fellow, and that's what he wants to do to you. But I just suggest to this audience, as I've said everywhere else, don't take my word for it. Look at the record.
Next to speak is Congressman Jack Kemp.
Let me say to my fellow members of the gun owners of New Hampshire, how pleased I am to be here. I too was here 8 years ago, Bob. I was here 8 years ago campaigning for President Ronald Reagan as our president. Very proud to have done it. And I can't think of a more important thing in 1988 to make sure that whoever we elect a conservative to follow on Ronald Reagan in 1988 and beyond. I don't want to throw away the gun owners' vote, but my favorite sport is football. You know, as an old quarterback, I was taught to throw straight. Taught this young boy out here, went to Dartmouth and plays pro football, to throw straight. Teach my daughters to shoot straight, to think straight. I want you to know what my idea of gun control is. My idea of gun control is a steady aim. The answer to gun control, punish the criminal who commits a crime with a gun, not punish law-abiding men and women who hunt and shoot and who are the most protective of our natural resources, who care deeply about the laws of this country, and who respect not only the Second Amendment, they respect the First Amendment. They want all the amendments protected, and that's what our motto ought to be, to protect the United States Constitution and have men and women on the courts who recognize the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. I want to assure you, of all the candidates in this race, each and every one of us want to do what's best for America. But I'll tell you why I'm against Senate Bill 465. It's sponsored by Metzenbaum and Teddy Kennedy, and that's good enough for me. The same people who are bringing you Senate Bill 465, Metzenbaum and Kennedy, are the same ones who lynched Robert Bork. We need people on the courts who understand not only what the Second Amendment, we need people on the court understand not only what the Second Amendment is about, but what all the amendments are about. Now, I understand that no Democrats wanted to show up today. Frankly, Richard Gebhardt is flying back from Iowa to lead the fight against aid to the freedom fighters. I want you to know that vote's going to come tomorrow in the U.S. House of Representatives, and like Bob, I'm going to fly back and suspend my campaign tomorrow and help lead the fight for the freedom fighters in Central America. Great honor to see Chuck Yeager here, and Senator Sununu. I'm Governor Sununu. Governor Sununu, and Governor Thompson, and distinguished men and women in the state legislature. I want you to know how proud I am of the support that we have received. People like Doris and Dick Riley, Bill Ruger, Gordon Humphrey, Senator Heath, Gene White, and ex-governor of South Dakota, Joe Foss, the next president of the NRA. I'm very proud that Joe Foss is helping us run our campaign in South Dakota. Look, we're all for protecting the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. The question is, who can win, who can broaden the base, and who can explain these issues all over America. And I believe with all my heart, the campaign that can not only be conservative, but can broaden the base of our cause is the Kemp campaign, and I would hope that you'll support Jack Kemp next February 16th. God bless you.
The next segment of the forum will be a segment in which each candidate will have 5 minutes to answer a question that gun owners of New Hampshire submitted to them previously. And the question is as follows. In the current session of Congress, there is pending Senate Bill 465, sponsored by ex-Senators Edward Kennedy and Howard Metzenbaum. This bill, although constantly called a, quotes, plastic gun, close quotes, bill by the press, does not even use the word, quotes, plastic, close quotes, and is said by many to be nothing more than a dishonestly packaged Saturday Night Special bill, intended to criminalize possession of all handguns. How would you vote on this or any other such bill if given the chance to do so, and why? If elected president, would you veto any such bill, and why or why not? Third, if a high-tech firearm is someday developed that is constructed without any metal parts, would you favor criminal penalties for the mere possession of such a firearm by a law-abiding citizen without any criminal intent, and if so, why? Or if not, why not? First to answer. 5 minutes each candidate to answer this question. To answer the entire questions read. It's a three-part question, I'm sorry. Not going to be here that long. First answer is Governor DuPont.
Well, Mr. President, I'm going to save a little time so we can get to the refreshment stand and not use all of my 5 minutes, because this is an easy question. I think we can go on to the next ones. There's no reason that the Congress of the United States ought to be fiddling around with various schemes to regulate firearms in America.
Absolutely.
All of us here, in one form or another, have just stated our support of the Second Amendment. One of us here has had a chance to lead a government and sign into law legislation that makes the protection of our homes and properties meaningful. But there's no reason that we ought to have a bill of this kind going through the Congress of the United States. I don't ever want to be a congressman again. I want to be President of the United States. So the answer to your first question is I hope I never get back to the House to have a chance to vote on this bill. But if I do, by any circumstance, I'm going to vote against it. If I was elected president, which I hope I will be, starting with you on the 16th of the month, I would veto such a bill, because it runs against the grain, not just of the Second Amendment to our Constitution, but it runs against the grain of what we ought to be trying to do in this country. not to find new ways to regulate trivial aspects of this or that, not to find new ways to prevent a law-abiding hunter or sportsman or citizen from owning a gun, but we ought to be expending our energies to try to catch and bring to justice, and if convicted, sentence and keep in jail criminals who would take our freedom away from us. So if elected president, yes, I would veto a bill such as this one. If a high-tech firearm is someday developed, I'd give the same answer. I'd like to veto that one too, because the purpose of the Senate and the House and the presidency is not to regulate guns, it's to make sure that people are free to own the firearms to either protect themselves or undertake their pleasure as sportsmen. So the answers to your question are very simple. I'll yield back the rest of my time in hopes that we can all get to the bar more quickly.
Next to address the question is Reverend Pat Robertson.
I'll make it even faster than you will on this one. I think that the fundamental principles have been addressed in our first remarks. And my ex-boss was Peter Grace of the Grace Commission. He used to refer to the senator from Ohio as Senator Messybum. And I think that he and Teddy Kennedy truly delight in limiting our freedoms. Whatever the freedom has to be or is, they want somehow to circumscribe it, and therefore I would vote against the measure that you mentioned. I would certainly veto it if it came before me as president, and I feel the same thing about any backdoor end run around the Second Amendment. I think we have to stand fast for our principles, and once they're established, then we don't chip away at them by various legislative devices by the liberals in the United States Senate or the House of Representatives.
Next to answer the three-part question would be Vice President George Bush.
Gun owner, a hunter, a member, lifetime member of NRA. I do have a deep appreciation for the Second Amendment rights. Conflicts sometimes arise between the interest of gun owners and the interest of law enforcement officers in this country. You got to work them out. I'm delighted that many of the police organizations and others that are out there doing the work of curtailing crime in this country have been strongly supportive of those of us at this table in various ways in responsible positions and of our administration. I saw as director of CIA and more recently as head of the President's Task Force on Terrorism and Narcotics Interdiction that there sometimes are conflicts. It's not always easy striking a balance. And it's proved, as Bob pointed out, and I give him credit for this, that the McClure-Volkmar bill proved that you could work things out. I would not support S-465, and yes, I'd veto it. I'll tell you what troubles me, though, and that is this whole question of detectability. I am concerned about it. Here's a weapon. That weapon, at this point, cannot be detected. That weapon can kill the pilot of an airplane. I don't want to see the Secret Service, for whom I have great respect, and who are laying their lives on the line courageously, and the police officers' organizations of this country on opposite sides of the NRA and of gun owners. It doesn't have to be that way. And I don't like the sponsorship by Mr. Metzenbaum and Mr. Kennedy, but I have great respect for Strom Thurmond, one of the leaders of the Senate, a sound conservative. And so I oppose this bill. I would veto it, but I would like to urge us, all of us here who are sportsmen, to understand that some of us have some responsibilities for protecting travelers in this country and keeping the peace. And so we ought not to automatically assume because the Secret Service opposed something and the police officers that they're all wrong. So my proposal is that we sit down with the varying officials in these organizations and work it out. I'm convinced we can do it. The answer should be detectability. And you can do that and still protect without voting for something like this bill that I told you I would veto and oppose. But I'm making a pitch here for reason on the part of hunters. The last thing you want to do is find yourselves opposed by those that are on the cutting edge of fighting narcotics, fighting against international terror, and trying to protect international safety. So I would urge consultation so we can find a way to handle the detectability question without impinging on the Second Amendment rights. Thank you very much.
Next to speak will be General Alexander Haig.
Well, I has to feel like that young bachelor that was enamored with Hollywood and ended up marrying a 7-time married middle-aged Hollywood beauty. And his friend said to him, "You're going to know how to manage this thing?" He said, "Oh, sure. I know exactly what to do. I just don't know how to make it different." Now, sure, if I had the right, I'd vote against this bill. Sure, if I were President of the United States, I would veto this or any other similar bill because this bill is a subterfuge and a perversion of truth. Why is it so? The sponsors of this bill, those two warriors, Kennedy and Metzenbaum, have looked at a new weapon called the Glock 17. This handgun is about 5 ounces of synthetic plastic and 19 ounces of steel. They have sponsored this bill under the allegation that it is not, Mr. Vice President, detectable. And isn't it a strange thing that our alcohol, drug, and firearm agency and the FAA have all concluded that it is detectable? And so this is a bill that's a phony to encroach on the handgun issue, the Saturday night special, and to establish national control of American firearms, and therefore it must be vetoed. And any other congressional subterfuge must be fought diligently by the executive branch. But let me tell you, the Vice President has put his finger on a very critical and a very important question which you and I, as gun owners and supporters of the Second Amendment, are going to have to deal with in the weeks and months and years ahead. I've been associated with a Japanese company called Kyocera that has developed skills in carbon-carbon technology. They have developed diesel engines, prototype combustion engines, which at this juncture seem to fail under the pressure of combustion, and they have developed carbon military weapons, especially gun barrels, which are more durable, have a longer life cycle, and can be produced at lower cost. And it could well be, I haven't seen this particular mini-piece that the Vice President held up today, but it could well be that very lethal arms, such as that, and larger caliber, will be developed that are simply not detectable in our airports or in our institutions where federal and public officials have to be protected against mindless terrorism. And therefore, we should understand, as I know all of you in this room understand, that the good of every American on some occasions require compromises by those of us who have special concerns. Indeed, I would say that if such weapons are developed, that we're going to have to sit down and work out solutions which are not going to put the good of the American people and promote international terrorism and danger to air travel or to our public officials. And if that means that some exceptions must be made to the strong convictions we all hold, we're going to have to responsibly be prepared to do that. But I do believe that modern technology will devise detection solutions for even such synthetic weaponry. I leave that with you because these are questions we're going to have to face, and how critical it is that responsible Americans who support the Second Amendment are going to fight for that right clear-headedly and always with a justified cause. I thank you.
Next to answer the question will be Senator Robert Dole.
Well, again, let me start with the record because I've already voted against the Metzenbaum amendment. The Senate vote was 47 to 42 against the amendment. The amendment was so broadly drawn that it could have been used for a lot of purposes other than those suggested by Senator Metzenbaum when he introduced the bill. Now we've had a discussion here, and I think it's a good thing. Because the justification for the bill is that plastic guns might be used by terrorists to circumvent airport security for hijacking and other terrorist acts. The assumption is that these weapons might not be detectable. And that was the argument made on the Senate floor during the debate. But I would just mention a couple of facts. Number one, there are no plastic guns on the market now. Nor are there likely to be any plastic guns in the near future. That's plastic. I would make the same reference that Al Haig made. They were talking about another weapon, the Glock 17, the Austrian-made Glock 17. And it's been bandied about by the media and at the congressional hearing last year as an example of a plastic gun which is only 13% non-metallic and is readily detectable by existing security devices. And that's how all this started. Now, I agree with Al Haig. I agree with George Bush. And we've got to be realistic. Someday, there may be detected or developed a plastic or non-metallic firearm. In the meantime, what we need to do is improve airport security. I learned about that from a friend of mine who used to be Secretary of Transportation. Now out of work, unemployed. Looking for a new address. But in any event, and to accelerate research, development, and detection technology so as to make such weapons detectable at that time. And I would say that, as I said, the Metzenbaum bill was too broadly drawn. So I would veto the bill if it came to me for the reasons I just stated. And the third part of the question, let's say that there is some high-tech development. No metal parts, but I'd be in favor of criminal penalties for the mere possession of such a firearm by law-abiding citizens without any criminal intent. And so, why, if not, why not? Now, if a high-tech firearm is developed, I would work with interested manufacturers and groups to see if these weapons could be made easily and readily detectable by adding enough metal or enough other material to make them detectable. But I've got to also believe that everyone in this room understands, as Al Haig referred to, that sometimes there is a public interest. We're talking about protection of American lives, whether they be policemen or Secret Service or someone else, and have to be very careful. But I believe that working with these groups who manufacture anything in the future, any high-tech weapon, we can make certain there's some way to detect it. I've introduced a bill. You saw the toy weapon the man held up in the California studio. I just say with a toy weapon, you put a yellow plug in the end of it. So everyone understands it's a toy weapon. You don't go around frightening people to death. You might even use those to get people to endorse us for president. scare a lot of people that way. So now they're going to have a yellow plug in the end. But it just seems to me if someone has a weapon with no unlawful intent and is using it for peaceful purposes, then there should not be criminal penalties. Thank you.
Finally, Representative Jack Kemp will address the question.
First of all, make no mistake about it. There is an attempt, both in the Congress and in the courts, to harass legitimate gun owners, shooters, sportsmen and women, and those people in this country, from New Hampshire to California, who care deeply about our Second Amendment rights. The bill is one of those harassments. So I would join my colleagues in making sure that I voted against it and would veto it. But I noticed the other day that the 11th District Court of Appeals ruled that a single-shot carbine is a machine gun. Recognized by some that a Ruger 1022 or a Remington 1100 would equally be banned. Ladies and gentlemen, that must not be. I went through Bill Ruger's plan. I saw the men and women who are at work making legitimate firearms. They're dedicated folks, making quality product. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. There are folks in the Congress like Metzenbaum and Kennedy and others who want to go after that type of shooter, and they want to go after those folks who work in those factories. It may be, as Bob pointed out, or Vice President Bush or Al Haig, that we're going to have to, in that moment of technology, such as providing barium sulfate in guns to make sure that there can be a detection device. And I applaud the responsible approach of legitimate firearms manufacturers and men and women who do shoot to find answers to these problems. But I want you to know that I would veto that bill, would have no qualms about vetoing that bill, and would make sure that this country moved forward and defended the legitimate rights of those Americans who believe in the Second Amendment. Let me make one other point that has to be made here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. And Al pointed out at the very beginning, there's a price to be paid for freedom. People like yourself all over this country who care about these issues have foreign organizations. We have one in Buffalo, New York. SCOPE, Shooters Committee on Political Education. Without their support and strong support over the years, I would not have been able to go to Congress. Very proud of the role that I played in helping to repeal the 68 Gun Control Act and to pass the Volkmer-McClure Act. Very proud to work with the NRA, Wayne LaPierre, making sure that that discharge petition, along with the help of Bob Smith, got out of the House and got voted on the floor overwhelmingly in favor of McClure-Volkmer. Each and every one of us up here care deeply about this issue, care deeply about our country, care deeply about the Republican Party. Ladies and gentlemen, let me make the point once again. 1988 is a watershed moment in the life of this nation. We've got to have an ability to express our ideas in a very positive and constructive and progressive way around this country and reach people who care deeply not only about just one issue, but all issues, making this country once again a nation of law, a nation of respect for law. People obey the law for one of two reasons. They either love God or they fear punishment. And where either of those are in decline, anarchy results. Respect for the law, respect for the tradition of this country, respect for the Second Amendment, I think, is the type of candidate that can bring our party and our movement not only to fruition, but can help broaden the base of this great conservative cause in 1988. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, 2 weeks from today, you get to go into your booth, your voting place here in New Hampshire, and about 100,000 Republicans have a lot of leverage because nobody else in America gets to vote on the 16th. February. And this election can very simply be said to be about opportunity. Yes, opportunity to bear arms as the Constitution guarantees you in the Second Amendment. And we've addressed that this evening. But that's a defensive opportunity. The presidency is a leadership job, it's offense. And our campaign has put forward some proposals to increase the opportunity that you will have around your kitchen table. And I hope you'll take them into consideration. One of them is the opportunity to keep some of the money you earn and not have the government take it away from you in the form of higher taxes. So I was the first candidate to take the pledge where John Sununu took it on the steps of the courthouse or the State House in Concord, not to raise your taxes, no oil import fees, no national sales taxes, no income tax increase. We have offered in our campaign the opportunity for you to save tax-free for your retirement just in case that Social Security system isn't going to be strong enough to help you when you get to be 65. Put a little money away. We'll give you a tax credit for it. It'll grow at market rates in the time that you're working. It might provide you twice the retirement income that Social Security does. That option for you puts more opportunity on your kitchen table. We've offered you an opportunity, a way to choose the school your children go to, private, public, parochial, whatever is best for your son or daughter, to get them the very best education the United States of America can provide. We've offered a way to help you kick drugs out of your teenagers' classrooms, to help you know whether your kids are involved in drug abuse so you can help them in the appropriate way. Now maybe some of you believe that America is perfect the way it is, that the status quo is the best we can achieve. I don't believe that. Neither does General Yeager. He wouldn't have done what he's done. I feel in my bones, like most of you feel in yours, that America can do better. If you believe that a little tax increase might be okay from time to time, if you believe that all of that Social Security will be there, and we can ignore the challenge that that 77 million baby boom generation is going to put on challenges, it's going to pose to Social Security. You believe you can educate your children for the 21st century with an education system designed in the 19th century. If you believe that drug use is some kind of an alternative lifestyle that your youngster ought to be able to choose at age 13, indeed, if you believe that the next president of the United States ought to be some kind of a caretaker who just muddles around at the edges instead of a revolutionary who goes to Washington to change things, you believe those things, one of the Democrats who's not here tonight, or one of the other Republicans who is, may be a fine president. If you believe America can do better, I want you to leave tonight knowing that I do too. That's why I'm running for president. If you believe that together, you and I on the 16th of February might make a difference, I want you to know that I believe that too. The opportunity's here. The proposals are on the table. We can make an enormous difference, and let's together make that difference. I need your support so we can ensure that the freedom, the opportunity that's been here for 200 years continues for at least 200 more. Thank you for the chance to be with you.
Next, Pat Robertson will give his slogan. Thank you.
We talked tonight about domestic gun control, and it's obvious we're all in favor of your right and our right as citizens to keep and bear arms. I don't think there's a dispute among us. I might address some of the things where there may be dispute among us, however, because after all, you've got to make a decision between one of us as to who's going to be the next president of the United States, and so there's bound to be some differences. We can't all be the same. We can't go in and serve as some kind of a six-man Hamlet. I don't want you to have your arms taken away from you. But listen, I also don't want this administration to take away the arms from the Mujahideen freedom fighters in Afghanistan the minute the Soviets pull out one division of troops from Afghanistan. I want all the Soviets out of Afghanistan, and I want freedom in that country. The next thing that I don't want to see is under cover of some illusory Jim Wright peace proposal on the Arias plan, the Contras in Nicaragua disarmed while the Sandinistas build up their Soviet supplies to create a Soviet beachhead on our continent. I want the Soviets out of the North American Hemisphere. I'll tell you something else. I don't want to see the United States of America disarm itself in Europe or disarm our European allies and take away our nuclear shield in Europe in exchange for the illusory promises of some Soviet dictator. That's why I'm against the INF Treaty. We're all going to fight to make sure that you and I have our sporting arms and that we have the right to form a militia in this country. But what good will a militia do with handguns and rifles against the enormous might of the Soviet Union? And I say America should not disarm. America must be strong. If we're going to have peace, there's only one way to have peace in this nation, and that is through strength, not through weakness. And I will resist every attempt by the Eastern liberal foreign policy establishment to disarm our nation or our allies. I'm standing firm on that for all of us for freedom in this country. Thank you. God bless.
Next, Vice President George Bush will give his statement.
Gun owners for this forum. Let me first say a word about what happens tomorrow. Several years ago, when the Sandinistas came to power, having overthrown Somoza, a dictator of the right, they made a pledge to the Organization of American States. And that pledge was democracy, freedom of the elections, freedom of the press, freedom of religion. They have gone back on that pledge to the Organization of American States. And our administration has been strong supporters of the Contras. We have had great difficulty getting it through the Democratic-controlled United States Congress. Last year, the Soviets spent $1 billion on arms in Nicaragua. $1 billion. And tomorrow we're talking about a very small amount of support for the Contras to keep the pressure on the Sandinistas, to get them to fulfill their pledge to the Organization of American States. And I hope that if there's any influence you have on those across the border in another state, because I think your senators, I hope, and your congressmen will be all right on this, that you will use your influence to support what is happening in the Congress for freedom in our own hemisphere. We cannot neglect democracy and freedom in our own front yard south of the Rio Grande River. Secondly, I have stood firmly with our president, and I have no regrets for that. He has been a great president of the United States, and I learned when the going gets tough, you don't jump away from the president of the United States. You stand with him, and I have now I want to be your president. And I believe, with respect, I would lay out my record of experience in the executive branch, as a member of Congress, as a member of the military, running a large agency in this country, the CIA, and some say, hey, lighten up on the CIA, not me. If we want to keep our freedom and have a strength second to none, we better strengthen the CIA. I'm proud to have the support of Governor Sununu and many others, Bill Bartlett, the leader of the Senate, but it is a tough decision coming up. I can't believe that any one of us wouldn't be better than any of the Democrats running for president. I want to be the president. I believe I'm going to be the president. With your help, I will guarantee I'll be the president. Thank you very much.
Next to give his closing remarks is General Haig.
Do I sense that this forum has become somewhat political? And since it is, I'm going to join the party. And what a credit it is to the Republican Party and to the gun owners of the state of New Hampshire that so many of your illustrious state officials, from the governor on down, are here to support your cause. Now, a few months ago, one of the Eastern Establishment pundits, Scotty Rustin, wrote in the New York Times, the Republican Party is a party that has run out of enthusiasm. Ronald Reagan is a president who has run out of gas. And if you'll excuse me, George, Mr. Bush is a vice president who's run out of luck. Now, I only wish Mr. Reston were here tonight to see that there isn't a single Republican or enlightened Democrat in this room who accepts his judgment of the Republican Party. Now, I want to say something about Al Haig. I'm a conservative. Our Conservative Party in New Hampshire has been flip-flopping around from 4 or 5 different candidates, so I'm not sure they know who is a conservative and who isn't. But I believe that the best government in America is the least government. I believe the good of the common man in America is best sustained by the unfettered, unrestricted skill, ingenuity, creativity, work ethic, and sense of responsibility of the uncommon men. And let me tell you, gun owners are uncommon men and women because they have remembered the values of this great nation. Now, I believe also, however, the government does have a responsibility. Some conservatives suggest the government has no responsibility for anything. That simply doesn't work in modern America. But I also believe that what government does, it must do well. And it will always do it best when it delegates the administration, the conduct, and the control of federal programs to the state and local level. And that applies above all to the rules and regulation and procedures for gun ownership. Now, we are a nation facing important challenges. Our President, Ronald Reagan, a great president, has presided over a renewal here in America, which has brought traditional American values, respect for our institution, and optimism about our future to the centerpiece of American thought. And that's critical for the future as we face the challenges of the 90s. But like every institution, the Reagan era is rapidly falling into the background. We must look to tomorrow. And I think America must now execute not only a feeling good about ourselves, but a greater degree of doing good as a society. The problems of drugs, which are still more plentiful on our streets today at lower prices than ever before in our history, demands new programs and new approaches, and that means to take the problem to the source. The declining quality of American education, which has been so effectively dealt with in this state, requires a new focus on grade and high school education in our public school systems with vouchers, merit pay for our teachers, and the reimposition of values in our curriculum in public schools. We have not dealt with the international plague of AIDS. And I was shocked that we were criticized in London recently because the United States has not taken up the mantle of leadership to deal with this growing plague and this threat to all mankind. And above all, we have the problem, which I have said, if the Vice President will excuse me, not a problem we can blame on the Democratic opposition, and that's the near tripling of our national debt, from $1 trillion to $2.4 trillion today, and probably $3 trillion by 1990 if we don't reverse current trends. And I think the recent Senate and White House compromise, or Congress and White House compromise, was a cop-out. We didn't do what we had to do. We didn't bite the bullet, and the international marketplace has been shocked and disappointed. My old friend Mort Saul said to me the other day, he said, "Al, you know why you won't be elected president?" I said, "Why, Mort?" He said, "Because unlike any other politician, and you're not one, the American people believe you mean what you say." Now, you believe me, I do. And I think America needs that kind of leadership in the 1990s, and I'm prepared to offer it. But above all, let me tell you, the Soviet threat remains the most venal threat to your peace and my peace and our way of life of any threat existing today. And best we put somebody in that White House that knows that Soviet opposition. And I'll guarantee you I do. And I will be smiling down Connecticut Avenue with the leader of the Soviet Union while they're brutalizing the third world. Thank you.
Well, again, let me thank everyone for coming, and let me thank my colleagues for coming. I think we've all demonstrated our concern for the Second Amendment. Again, I would say if you check the record, there's only one of us with a record. And that's what it's all about. Not a criminal record either. Let me tell you about it, in case you haven't heard about it. A lot of people use the word, but leadership, whether it's in this organization, or politics, or in school, or in the governor's office, or wherever you go, when you're trying to choose someone, or choose an automobile, or advance someone in a job, what do you look at? You look at their record. What have they done? Not what speeches have they made, not what promises have they made, not what brochures or negative ads have they run, but what have they done? And I stood here, as I said 8 years ago, and I saw Ronald Reagan walk off to this place, and he made a lot of home runs when he was elected. He picked some of us off the street who've been in the minority for 20 years and made us committee chairman. He gave us an opportunity to demonstrate whether or not we could provide leadership. And I'll just say very quickly, I know there's been a little Congress bashing going around in this state, but I'm proud of the Reagan record, and I'm proud to have been a part of it. When we had the majority in the Senate for 6 years, that's where it all started. That's where the president brought his program. That's where he brought his tax cuts. That's where I added tax index, which takes care of you if you get a raise for inflation. You're out there working for a job. You know what that means for the next 5 years? $75 billion to the workers, not the government. That's indexing. And so we led the Reagan Revolution. Yes, those of us in Congress. And we fought Democratic attempt after Democratic attempt to do away with the third year of the tax cut. And my friend Jack Kim gets a little credit for that.
Yes.
But Jack should be running those awful ads up here. He should be distorting my record. I'll even protect George Bush for about 30 seconds here. Don't overdo it. Saying we could hardly wait to cut somebody's Social Security when he voted against the bill to save it. Now we got a level with the voters up here. I find the voters in New Hampshire to be a pretty independent group. I even read where Jack said I voted for the final passage of the 1968 Gun Act. I don't know, Jack wasn't in Congress, but he must have got a wrong copy. I voted against it. It took a lot of heat. Vice President wasn't there. He was campaigning for the Senate. But in any event, I understand leadership. And I understand what making a difference is all about. I think you have to make a decision. Who do you want seated across from Mr. Gorbachev?
George Bush!
It's coming out of my time. You always have these little minority groups showing up there. You can't get ahead of me. So I'm just saying, I'm not going to mention any more names. I want to mention Governor Sununu. He could have endorsed me and had a winner, but he didn't do it. But I want to leave with one thing on my mind. I've got 1 minute to do it. When you take a look at the Reagan record, when you take a look at the ACE record and find out which one of these candidates is a conservative, which one of these candidates has made a difference, which one of these candidates can talk to you about gun control, because I was there after 6 years, we finally brought it up and we passed it. Got 2 amendments passed to change the 68 Act after that. Who's worthy? They were Bob Dole's amendments. So leadership's what it's all about. And I want to ask you in the last 15 seconds I want to ask you for your vote. Your vote's a very precious thing. I feel like a little like a TV minister, Pat, but I want to ask everybody in the sound of my voice. I want to ask everybody in the sound of my voice to vote for me on February the 16th, not for Bob Dole, but vote for America. Vote for someone who understands America, somebody who understands the real people, somebody who will provide leadership, somebody who has a record. Bob Dole, thank you.
Tim.
Final candidate to give his closing remarks will be Congressman Kemp.
Al, thank you, first of all. It's been a great evening. It's an honor to wrap it up. There's been a lot of jokes, a lot of thoughtful comments, and a lot of discussion of the word leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, leadership is not talking about it. It isn't giving speeches about it. It isn't looking backwards to see what you've done. It's looking forward. Politics is not about the past. Politics is about the future. It isn't discussing a resume. It isn't debating ad nauseum Iran-Contra. It's moving forward. It's talking about issues, ideas, and policies, and programs, and platforms. And I give Pete DuPont credit for cutting taxes in Delaware. I'm very proud to have helped cut taxes 30% across the board for every American. I've sat silently while people talk about the Reagan Revolution. I was in New Hampshire campaigning for the Reagan Revolution. I hear people people talking about helping push it through the Senate or even the House. I helped author it. I hear people talking about the past, but as I said, it's what we're going to do in the future. I've got an answer to the gun control lobby. I would replace the whole United States Congress with the New Hampshire legislature, and there wouldn't be any more problems with gun control lobby. I'll tell you what, while we're at it, I'd leave Humphrey and Smith and Greg and Bob. There'd be a place for you as well. But I'll tell you what. Ladies and gentlemen, this election is the single most important election in our adult lifetime. It's important not just because of what we started in 1980, because of how much more there is to do. 212 years ago, Thomas Jefferson wrote the words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." With all my heart, I don't believe he wrote those words for some folks. I think he wrote those words for all folks. I don't think he wrote those words for one time in history. I think he wrote those words for all time in history. And I think he wrote those words not just for America, but for the Americas. Not just for our hemisphere, but for all hemispheres. Ladies and gentlemen, this 1988 election reminds me of 1976, when Alexander Solzhenitsyn gave that speech at Harvard and he said, "If America does not lead the free world will not have a leader." We cannot default on what we have to do in this world. This is a great nation. We must provide the leadership not only for the free world, we must lead not only with words, but with action and example. And I'm convinced that if a conservative does not lead America into the 1990s, America will not have the leadership it needs. Now, we're all conservative, but the question is, number one, who can win? Who can win by talking to people who've never been part of that coalition before? Who can win by showing people that we're not just conservative in terms of the status quo, but we're conservative in terms of our values, that we believe in the defense of the West and Western civilization, that we believe in the defense of the family and those precious Judeo-Christian values, that we believe in the defense of entrepreneurial capitalism as a way of unleashing the talent and the ability of this nation. New Hampshire's done it. New Hampshire has created an economy in which unemployment at 2%, the budget's in surplus, taxes have been kept low, spending is restrained, and freedom for the small businessmen and women in this state is unmatched anywhere. We need to do for the country what you've been able to do in New Hampshire. I walked down the streets of Concord, New Hampshire on New Year's Eve with my family. A tiny little woman walked up to me. She said she wanted me to meet her mother. She was Vietnamese. 9 or 10 years ago, they were in a boat in the South China Sea. Today they live in your state, because this is a state where folks want to live free or die. Ladies and gentlemen, our motto should be live free and live. Live free and live. We want SDI, we want aid to the freedom fighters around the world, we want a free enterprise system, and we want the family to be the heartbeat of the American democracy. And I want you to know that a vote for me is not a vote for Jack Kemp, it's not a vote for the Republican Party, it's a vote to help make America once again one nation under God, with indivisible liberty and justice and equality of opportunity for every child of God, even those people around the world who want to be here someday. God bless you, God bless America.
Join us on Sunday when we'll bring you live coverage from Des Moines, Iowa. Our guest on a viewer call-in program will be Democratic presidential candidate Senator Paul Simon. We invite your questions and comments for Senator Simon Sunday afternoon at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 12:30 for our West Coast viewers.